So we're here with Bradley Grant Smith, the writer, director, producer, composer of Our Father, which just premiered in South by Southwest narrative feature competition. Um, Bradley has an extensive acting history, but this is his debut feature. And that's correct, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a very darkly comic, poignant tale about two sisters trying to reconnect over a loss in the family that leads them to try to track down their mysterious, estranged Uncle Jerry and learn about each other in the process. So the first thing I want to ask about is what, Bradley, what you took from your acting career and brought into the film, kind of what experiences you drew from the most that helped you get this made and in such a way that you were pleased with it.
Well, to me, the most exciting part of making the movie is working with the actors and trying to get as much decided and set away ahead of time so that when we're actually on set, we can work on what it is we're actually capturing. And a great joy for me was from being an actor, knowing so many great actors in Chicago whose voices I wanted to write for. So getting to write for a lot of specific people and then getting to play with them on set was a lot of fun.
It seems like every supporting role, no matter how small, was like a very fleshed out character actor, like fully, you know, baked into the role. Every performance was really specific.
Yeah, we have so many great talents here in this city and a lot of peculiar people um, who just don't get to to do their thing. And I could have expanded any of those scenes and vignettes probably into their own features. It wouldn't be hard. The hard thing was cutting them down and not taking too many diversions.
Right. Well, that's what hooks you into the film. The very first scene, you have the really eccentric library security guard accosting Beta in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately this guy just, you feel like he has this whole history behind his job and so much baggage that's making him act this way. So it did feel like each of these characters kind of had their own place in the universe, even if they were only on screen for a minute.
Yeah, I like to think so.
What was it like, I guess, coming up with your greatest hits list of actors that you know to be in the movie and kind of fitting the puzzle pieces into the script?
Well, it was instructive in the writing of the film when I knew I wanted to write for a specific person that would inform what happened next. Who do I want to show up in this next scene? And then, who would they be? And that would sort of help bring the story along. But a lot of some other folks like Austin Pendleton or Tim Hopper, among others, were people who I was a fan of their work in the city through TV and film and the theater world, but didn't know that well and felt like, oh, they're not going to want to do this, So having them say yes enthusiastically and come and play and be game was a boost in confidence.
Did you always know you wanted this project to be a homegrown Chicagoan effort?
That just kind of came organically from circumstance, but it never occurred to me to do it elsewhere or otherwise. And I certainly, it is important to me to lift up the talent and community here, as opposed to trying to outsource to a bigger name, for a role to try and, which would obviously please producers. But it is important to me to try and create work here in the city that isn't just, the TV shows that we've got and the Dick Wolf world, which is great, but to do a little bit more in the dark comedy indie world. We don't see a ton of that here.
Well, it seems like it helped too to be able to work from a realm of familiarity. Um,
Yeah, I think so, and I think everybody on set felt that and wanted to contribute to the project in that way. Um, you know, or we're even down to casting and things where um, the first big boost we got was approaching um, the women at PR casting in the city, which is, as an actor, my favorite place to audition. And I thought, well, they're never going to want to work on this project. And the fact that they said yes, you know, made it seem like, okay, we're making a real movie. But I think they also wanted to say yes because they could tell that it was going to be a fun project for the community, different than what they normally get to do.
what kind of conversations did you have with your collaborators about the tone of the project? Because it has a very specific voice behind it and sense of humor that feels collectively embraced by everyone in the cast. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious, is this just like all the people you know had share like the same sensibility, or you were kind of very clear when working with your collaborators what you
Uh,
wanted?
you know, once we rolled, I was pretty, I like to talk about it with everybody beforehand. Um, but everyone was so good, and there is a lot of um, there's a lot of room within what tones, various tones, the film is willing to allow. And so, which I think is a turnoff for some viewers who maybe feel like they're being knocked back and forth a bit, but I enjoy that. And so in that way you can get sort of different tones and still have it seem to play because the overall tone is kind of so frantic. But that's what my life is like. I mean, you know, it's not a genre. It's all of them.
Right. That's what I think Jerry says near the end is that if you're not struggling, you're not alive, or something like that.
Hmm.
So is that sort of a keystone philosophy that you brought into the film, or what made you want to make a film that had such a mix of dark humor and really kind of beset characters, and depression and mental health are such big themes?
You know, those are all things that interest me as a person and in the art that I'm drawn to. Um, I think generally, just generally speaking, I consider myself a sad person, and I'm also a funny person, and those things exist at the same time, and I don't feel it. It feels strange to me to try to separate them, and like that maybe as an exercise that would be interesting. But I kind of feel like when I'm judging a movie, if it makes me cry and not laugh, it's not quite all the way there. And same vice versa, that a comedy should bring a tear to my eye and a drama should make me laugh. And so I try to do both of that. But mostly it was just what tickles me, you know.
About the relationship between the two sisters, what kind of conversations did you have with the actors, or what maybe inspired? How much came from them, and how much came from your script?
Well, uh, Baze and Allie were the first two actors that I um, set on before even beginning to write the script. So
And you knew you wanted them specifically for the film.
yeah, they were two actors in the city that I both knew personally and was just a huge fan of their work. And you know, initially I knew it was going to be siblings, and I have an older brother. Um, but it occurred to me that it didn't really matter to me whether they were brothers or sisters. And so I thought, well, I'll make them sisters for a number of reasons, but then also, oh, great, Allie and Baze would be perfect sisters. And I just felt like I knew how to write for both of them immediately. And so there's stuff taken from my relationship where I've led sort of a more, uh, um, what's the word, a more eclectic life than my more conventional older brother, who I do get along with. And Baze has a younger sister, and Allie has sisters as well. And we met, and I had input from both of them in the script. But primarily it was that kind of buddy comedy dynamic, which we see in lots of films, and then writing for their voices. And so I tried to put some of myself in it and include things from them, but it really is kind of just a mashup of a bunch of things. You know, the character of Zelda is not like anybody in real life, any of our siblings, or like Allie, but I could hear that in her voice very much, you know, and sort of this cartoonish amplification of what that person might be.
So when you're writing in someone else's voice, do you feel like you're kind of channeling them and trying to imagine how they might react in the character's position, or is it more of giving them kind of a foundation that you know they can work with?
Yeah, it's not really based on who they are, although again, with Allie and the character of Zelda, Allie is a brilliant writer and filmmaker in her own right, and she has a very unique, specific, wonderful, sometimes vulgar sense of humor. So there were certain lines that I knew that I was giving to Zelda, not because I thought Allie would say them, but because I thought Allie would find them funny, and you know, or know how to deliver that in the right way.
It's a little bit of trying to make your friends laugh and just having fun with the process too.
Yeah, and you know, it's like you're just really improvising by yourself on the page. Oftentimes, you know, totally surprised by what's coming out. Sometimes thinking, is this really where the movie is going? You know, do I even like this? Well, you know, I'm going to decide that later, but first I got to write it. But having those voices, not that they give me what to say, but it's another kind of little guiding shove as you're careening, you know, what would fit right or feel right coming from one voice or the other.
It feels like a very timely project too, just in all the family relationships and kind of reconnecting, rekindling those relationships. And I I don't know when this was written, but I assume this wasn't written before COVID, so it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's had a pretty long road, a pretty long development. I actually first began working on the script in 2014. So in some ways, it's interesting how relevant it seems, or the ways that in which people are connecting with it now,
Right.
versus certain aspects that make it seem like maybe a little slightly off from the reality that we're in. Of course, there's many tonal reasons for that as well, but also sort of when is this taking place? You know, can you tell who the president was when, you know, that the movie was shot?
There were a couple lines that definitely, yes, I picked up on.
Well, you know, but the truth is, we shot it when Obama was president,
Really?
and so it's just interesting to me the way, you know, in some ways it feels like it's touching on hot button issues, but they've obviously not news to a lot of folks. They've been issues for a long time.
Right. So is it a testament to the cyclical nature of history, or just the fact that art is so malleable and we can project whatever we're feeling onto good art?
I hope it's that, you know, because the other answer is just that, you know, we as a society don't get any better at solving these issues. We discuss them, and then stop discussing it, and then it comes back up again, and we just keep having the same conversations. But sometimes you need to have them a bunch of times before they stick. So
So we can see in the background some of your instruments. I'd like to know about the score that you also helped compose and produce for the movie. What was it like
Mhm.
working in that element?
Um, it was great. I mean, I love doing it. I love making music, um, and I have strong feelings about music and music in movies. But it wasn't my intention to do the score myself. Um, I feel rather limited. I mean, I think anybody does, but limited to their own style or ability. And I didn't want the soundtrack or score to be limited by my limitations. But we had other limitations in addition to my own artistic ones that were financial and circumstantial. And eventually it became clear that the best bet and easiest bet was just for me to do it. So so I had a bunch of pieces, little piano riffs that I'd kind of been collecting and then revisiting and expanding, watching the movie and playing along to them and sort of getting a feel for the different kind of tones that would be useful. And then I had my friend Ronnie Cooler, who is a wonderful violin player and a piano player and accordion player as well in the city, um, and sent her the music. And basically, she listened to it. She didn't have much time, and we got in the studio and just played through them. And she kind of just improvised along with me, and we did a few takes of everything, and ultimately I was pretty happy with it.
Well, it's probably a great learning experience too. Do you think you would do that on a future project?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it was fun because as a songwriter, I'm mostly focused on um, the words, and in part because I don't consider myself a proficient musician. So this was kind of a night freeing me up to not have to worry about that and just be about mood and emotion, and actually made me more curious about doing some more instrumental stuff.
Cool. Back to the idea of limitations. What, having made your first feature now, what are some of the challenges you had to overcome that have may change your approach in the future that you learned a valuable lesson from?
There were many, and I wouldn't have learned them probably without having done this. But we shot the movie for under $50,000, and we shot it in 11 days. And it was a grueling schedule. Luckily, again, everybody was game for it, and uh, and we had a very positive set. I think that people enjoyed being a part of, which is essential and sometimes rare. But I would never do that again. I mean, I think it's amazing what we were able to get done, and I'm in that time and with those resources, and I'm super proud of it. But the next time, I want time to breathe on set, time to play. Shooting 5 pages a day as opposed to 15 would be absolute heaven. So, and then of course the struggle through post, which was just not something that I had allotted time or money for, which made it at sometimes feel like a burden almost getting this film to the finish line. It's been so rewarding now, of course, but learning those lessons that I don't want to take this long on the next one. Longer time shooting it, less time getting it finished.
Have you thought about what the next one might be?
Yeah, I have a script that I'm really happy with, uh, that ideally I would act in as well, um, about a kind of bumbling building manager in a low rent apartment building that gets infiltrated by Russian spies.
Oh, Cool.
Another dark comedy about community, but with a little quasi thriller paranoia aspect.
Love it. Sweet.
Yeah. So really, the key for that one is going to be finding the building. I think if we can find a building that will work or that we can have our way with, we could do that probably for pretty relatively little money.
And you think you'll probably draw from the same pool of your actor colleagues and collaborators?
There's some folks who I have in mind for the film, and then there's some question marks as well. You know, there's two competing desires, which is I love the idea of community and finding people that you gel with, and you know, have always looked with envy or admiration at, you know, P.T. Anderson and, you know, the actors reappearing in film after film, or Coen Brothers too. But then you want to expand your world and expand your community and horizons. And so, you know, I'm hoping to do some carryover as well as making some new friends and, you know, and just kind of keep building that bubble. Burble, I was gonna say circle and bubble, or subble.
The ending of your film stuck with me, and I'm curious if there's anything you want to share about it. Maybe you don't want to analyze your own film too much, but I'm just curious because so many of the relationships were kind of left unresolved at the end. It felt more kind of poignant and realistic, and I'm I guess I'm curious about your philosophy behind the whole arc.
Um, well, you're right. I don't want to say too much, um, but um, you know, I think endings are tough in any story. The ending of novels, movies, TV series, it's always tough to stick the landing, and I think a lot of that is in part um, because stories don't end. I mean, life is a journey. It's a journey the whole time, and by the time it ends, you're dead. You know, you never experience the end. Everything is always spilling over, and so I like things or the endings that speak to me most. And I'm not saying we did this in Our Father or accomplished it, but are endings that kind of spin out into a more poetic grace note, that don't rely so much on the plot-oriented ending, but more so on an emotional or tonal ending that can kind of inform how you look at the things that took place. And, you know, for me, their stories continue, you know, and I have questions about those characters as well that you know, I worry about some of them still.
Yeah, it's always nice when you grow to like the characters, and then the end makes you want to stay in the brain space of that world a little longer. You keep wondering kind of what would happen next, or the future.
Yeah, and it engages your, you know, David Lynch has the phrase where he talks about leaving the audience with room to wonder, and obviously he does that, you know, more than most. And that wasn't my intention, but I like that idea that it continues to spark and engage your imagination even after you've stopped watching it. And that way, that's kind of the coolest place for the film to live. You know, it begins this active conversation between the film and the viewer that you can, you know, people were activated, you know, in their minds by Twin Peaks for 25 years, enough to watch season 3 because of those frustrating things, you know, but you kept coming back and wondering, well, what did that mean? Or what did that happen?
Well, maybe in 30 years they'll finally explain Lost to all of us.
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Is the three brothers and the mom, who are kind of this villainous group for the two sisters at some points. I mean, the way you light them, that you make them look really villainous, and they're just really kind of bumbling and unctuous and all the bad things an uncle can be. I'm kind of curious what your inspiration was there, because it felt so specific.
Well, it's, they are probably the most cartoonish in the film. That I feel like even the other weird people are a little bit more humanized than they are. And part of that, I think, is Beta and Zelda's perception of them. But it also just, I know some people like that who not that bad, but who just don't operate on a level of sympathy, and they don't see that as like a deficit in their personality. And so you almost, it's like, well, I think we can, as an audience, can judge these characters, but in real life, it's sort of, well, if that's not a component of you, then who you are, then, is that wrong? Like, okay, your dad, their dad's dead. Presumably they had a closer relationship with him, and they don't, there's not any ounce of sadness there. Maybe they're feeling it privately. I don't know, but but I think there are people who go through life like that, and it's foreign to me, but I think it's more common than maybe we think it is.
Definitely. They were cartoonish, I guess, now that you explained it, in the subjectivity of their portrayal because of the way the main characters view them, but they also felt like very real assholes.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the sadness and the comedy meet, as you were saying before, because it's both kind of absurdly hilarious and also tragic that these characters are so narcissistic and unaware.
Yeah, there's a lot of missed opportunities there for all of them, which, if you're hoping for them to stumble onto one of those opportunities, it can be a disappointing experience. But they needed to get out of there. I mean, maybe it was important to see that these people weren't gonna do it for them, even if they got acceptance.
Right. That's just a part of growing up.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. I know we went a little over time, but I really appreciate all of your responses and thoughts on the film, and I can't wait to see the next one.
Well, thanks so much, Dylan, for talking with me. This was great fun for me as well.
Cool. Take care, Bradley. Enjoy the rest of your festival.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you too.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.